On to 12,000 people could die daily from COVID-19 linked hunger by the end of the year. That's according to Oxfam. It says the world's 10 worst hunger hotspots, such as South Sudan and Venezuela, food crisis is getting worse. Meanwhile, many people globally have lost their income due to the pandemic. Let's chat more about this now with Oxfam's Mthandazo Ndlovu-Hlahla. Mthandazo, good morning and thanks for your time this morning. So just give us a brief idea. We've mentioned one or two of them when it comes to the 10 worst hunger hotspots and where South Africa might fit in this picture.
Well, thank you so much for having us. South Africa is one of the emerging global hotspots, of course, directly as a result of reduced household incomes, uncertainty around food availability, which is also directly linked to the issue of access to income and access to jobs. With COVID-19 lockdowns, this has meant that lots of people have lost income. The companies have closed. We are seeing massive retrenchments. But of course, systemically, there is always the issue of inequality, growing levels of inequality. The crisis of climate change is further exacerbating what we're now experiencing globally, which is the rise in the numbers of people in households that are facing hunger. In South Africa, that number is just before COVID-19, it was hovering around 13.7 million. But according to government's own data through the World Bank report and the President's, which was released last year, the figure is quite high. They're saying 25% of the population is facing hunger. And you can imagine where the figures are now post-COVID times or during the COVID times.
So, Mthandazo, I wonder, when the pandemic reared its head and we saw lockdown in many of these countries, yes, we know that certain organizations were limited in how they could help people or limited as to how they could get to them. Are we not seeing just a bit of improvement in that area now with some lifting of restrictions? Do the numbers necessarily have to be this bleak? Do the predictions have to be this bleak?
Yeah. Certainly, if you also had to consider that there's millions of undocumented migrants living, particularly in the informal settlements, in the informal townships, the numbers are quite higher, as we know that in terms of the statistics that is coming from Stats SA and other economic and labor reports, that massive companies are retrenching workers massively, or workers are having their incomes cut by half. That's a fact, that's a reality. As much as there has been improved harvest outcomes, but generally the prices for maize are quite high, and of course basic commodities prices have increased, and people are losing income. So you can see where the balance is, that the numbers would rise. Yeah.
Well, I see that there's particular mention or particular focus on women and women-headed households. And just earlier on the program, I spoke to somebody for a Back a Mum campaign, also highlighting that women, single mums, need a lot of help there at the moment, or not just single mums, but whether it's older sisters or grannies who are leading the households. Just give us some insight there.
It's quite severe and dire, especially in rural areas, provinces such as in KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape and Limpopo. We spoke to Mam Tigo in Umzimvubu during the COVID times, and she was having nothing to eat. She had to resort to crushing maize cob, an empty cob, and mix it with water just to have something to eat with her family. Fortunately, through our interventions as Oxfam South Africa and our partners, we're able to provide some immediate relief efforts to alleviate household hunger. But it's the same situation across the country, particularly in informal townships, in urban areas.
So I have to wonder at this point, and I see in the statement you've taken a bit of a swipe at some big food and beverage companies as well. And we know that there are those out there who are doing their bit, but are those who are able, is everyone who is able out there doing what they can, or are some shying away? And like you talk about the 8 biggest food and beverage companies paying out $18 billion to shareholders as we see more people go hungry.
It's a step in the right direction, but it remains insufficient. Looking at the numbers and the state of food insecurity and hunger, more billions are required, particularly through central pooling together of resources. Even the government's own intervention around the COVID-19 social relief fund, it's okay, but remains insufficient. It's not even closer to what Stats SA recommends in terms of the poverty line. So much more investments are required. We need to invest in food systems and supporting small-scale farmers and ensuring that there is integrity in the whole value chain of food systems.
The hunger virus is what we're calling it. Thank you very much, Mthandazo from Oxfam there.
Thank you for having us.
Picture looking very bleak. Let's see if you and I can make a difference, and however small it is. Well, that's where we leave it on this Friday morning.